Are ya ready? I don't want to say kids. Today, we're going to be looking at glitches that still work within SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. Finally got around to playing this title, and while this game is a glitch in itself, there are some real fun ones to mess around with. This lady looks like she enjoys that seaweed a little too much. We're going to cover some big glitches and some smaller ones as well. Can't wait to get into Bikini Bottom, so let's dive right in. Let's start this off with a really interesting out of bounds glitch, and it involves the use of Hans. When you stray too far from the normal level's boundaries, Hans will come in and try and place you back on track. If you jump while entering an out of bounds area, the hand will place you back where you started, but with a little extra height. Well, we can abuse this by repeatedly jumping after you take back control of SpongeBob and continuously going out of bounds. Pretty much just mash jump and hold the control stick away from the actual level. I'm doing this first in Goo Lagoon, but there are a few other levels we'll get to in a sec. But each time you're placed back in bounds, we end up slightly higher than the previous time. What we're trying to do is jump over the level's boundary. This can take some time as we have to get pretty dang high, or about 5 minutes of just doing this over and over. But eventually, Hans will stop showing up and you'll land on solid ground, out of bounds completely. We're now free to explore a lot of areas. Since the game shows off distant locations to make the world feel more cohesive, we can go explore these low resolution versions of them. When in Goo Lagoon, our first stop is just over this cliffside that has no wall, so we can just see underneath a good portion of the level. Ooh. That's great and all, but I care more about the hub world in the distance. The main cast's houses are pretty standard, with Squidward's house lacking a door. But obviously we can just run right through everything as there's no collision. It gets really weird when we go over towards Sandy's tree dome. I guess since we're so far away, the game doesn't even paint the tree dome, so it's weird to see a white out version of it. Very strange, but it looks cool. Going over towards the Krusty Krab, you may notice that the buildings here do not match up with the real hub level. For some reason, the Krusty Krab is across from the Bikini Bottom Police Department, and the Chum Bucket is skewed off to the side. This is what the normal version looks like, with the police department nowhere near this area, but for some reason, it's here in this version. It's also weird to see these areas without roads, just sitting in the sand. Anyway, I ended off this level by running to the edge of the world and jumping off, which almost immediately took me to a loading screen and placed me back in Goo Lagoon like I never left. That's okay though, as there's another level that this is possible in, downtown Bikini Bottom. Pretty much just start jumping away from the taxi stop, heading towards Conch Street. That's SpongeBob's house, by the way. This one took me basically the same amount of time, roughly 5 minutes, until I landed on the ground. I started by phasing through each of the main houses. Again, Squidward's house does not have a door for some reason, and the Chum Bucket is sinking into the ground. I tried going towards Jellyfish Fields, but none of the ground is solid, so you can just run through everything. Still kind of cool that there's this much to explore out of bounds. I ended off this portion by walking down a very long road near the Sea Needle, which stretches far past the regular sand ground. Not sure why, but it kind of looks creepy to just be standing out here with nothing else around. There is one more way to get out of bounds in the hub, but we'll get back to that in a little bit. One thing I do really like about this game is the ability to teleport to any spatula you've either collected or unlocked the quest for. It's really only supposed to be a feature for SpongeBob, but there are times you can get around this. In subsections of the hub world like SpongeBob's Pineapple and Sandy's Tree Dome, the game just doesn't switch you back to Sponge automatically. So start in a level as a different character and then select the first spatula you get in the game, which is in the pineapple. Once the load screen is over, you'll be in the house as whatever character you were when you teleported. The game doesn't expect this to be possible, so we get very strange voice lines when interacting with stuff. Go into the kitchen and read the note on the table. For some reason, the voice will be SpongeBob, but we're clearly Sandy here. Even the name on the subtitles reads Sandy, but it's just not her voice.
A note from Mr. Krabs! And it even smells sweaty, just like him.
Yeah, it's a little odd, especially because Sandy is animated while talking as well. This also works with the little TV cutscene.
Breaking news!
So much for fixing this quietly.
To my knowledge, these are the only two spots in the pineapple that this is possible. If you try and talk to Gary, the game just doesn't have a programmed voice line, so the talk button just vanishes as soon as you press it. No matter how hard you try, the snail will just ignore you. The other spot you can go to is Sandy's Tree Dome, so now there's just two Sandys hanging out together. One of you should probably leave. But like I said, this is possible with both unlockable characters, Sandy and Patrick. Just start in a level as one of them and then teleport back to a building in the hub. I'm pretty sure it's not possible to travel between different levels as different characters, only the hub will work. Okay, moving on to one of my personal favorites, massive and tiny characters. Both SpongeBob and Patrick have this ground pound move by jumping and pressing B while in the air. Well, if we do this repeatedly on top of any NPC, some strange things will occur. If you perform this as Patrick, the character will slowly grow each time you repeatedly do it. The longer you keep this rhythm without falling off, the faster they will expand. My guess is that the animation of them doing this bouncy shrink and grow thing gets interrupted by another ground pound, so the game just stacks the growth portion over and over. So each time you interrupt it, the character grows ever so slightly. The collision for the character never changes, so we just have to keep doing it in the same spot they started out in. As you can see with Mr. Krabs, it is extremely entertaining to get him as big as he did. Talking to him was hilarious as well, as all you could see was the bottom of his pants. Like, look at this man. He's just a tower, even from far away. I ended up doing the same thing to this anchovy, so now I just have these two massive NPCs hanging out next to each other. Switching over to SpongeBob is when things get really interesting. Trying to do the same thing will cause the same effect, but in reverse. Each time you spam ground pound on a character, they will slowly get smaller and smaller. You can continue this until they are the size of an ant. Like, look at Larry here. He is definitely not as strong as he used to look. So it's kind of fitting that one makes the character grow and one makes them shrink. Funny enough though, this glitch is kinda inconsistent with Patrick, and I don't really know how or why. The first time I tried this glitch, Patrick made Mr. Krabs shrink down to an ant and not even grow. But then every other time I tried, the NPC would grow. So I don't know if there's a specific timing or camera angle it has to be at or what, because you can get both effects with Patrick. A majority of the time they will grow though. It doesn't matter if you use his regular ground pound or the one after a double jump, as they are different animations, but it doesn't seem to cause any differences. It seems to be some other factor, but I can't figure it out. If you try this one out, let me know what happens, as I can't really figure out a consistent method. All you really need to know is that a majority of the time, Patrick will make characters grow, and SpongeBob will almost always make them shrink. Back in Goo Lagoon, one of the golden spatulas requires Patrick to jump off from the top of the sandcastle down to this little ledge and begin a platforming sequence. If you try and just jump up, you won't have enough height. But if you've played this game before, you know that stepping onto the goo or water or whatever this liquid is will cause your character to spike up, and you'll die if you land in it fully. We can abuse this mechanic by simply standing in the corner of this rock and walking into the goo. The height from the bounce is enough to get you onto this ledge, skipping having to go all the way around and hitting the checkpoint. This could be helpful in a speedrun or something, and is a nice way to get this spatula a little early. It's also possible with SpongeBob, but you can't really do much as you need Patrick to throw the watermelon here. I told you we'd come back to this, so here is how to get out of bounds in the hub world. This is also incredibly easy to do. Come behind Patrick's rock and stand on top of this rocket. All we gotta do is run off the edge of it, double jump, and spin towards this clamsicle cart. For some reason, that is enough distance that hands just doesn't take you back, and we're now completely out of bounds. There's a lot of practical uses for this glitch, but let's explore a little first. We can finally live out our dreams of standing on the goo in Goo Lagoon, as it doesn't kill us like it normally would. I then tested what would happen if I jumped off the edge of the world. There's no death plane in the hub, so we can just fall infinitely until the skybox is even out of view. I continued to fall in hopes of something interesting happening, and sure enough, after about 3 minutes of this, SpongeBob just completely vanished off the screen. I guess since we went too far for the game to handle, now everything's unloaded and we can't even pause the game. So now my only option was to reset the game. After getting out of bounds again, which I'm still shocked by how easy it is, I explored a little more of downtown and Jellyfish Fields. All the buildings are not solid, so we can just run around this glitchy version of the city. But okay, now it's time for some practical uses. By getting out of bounds in the first section of the hub world, we can access the other two areas with a little parkour. After getting out, just hop up these purple rocks and continue straight until you reach the Sand Mountain area. We can just walk back in through the taxi gate and end up in the second section of the hub. Way earlier than we were supposed to. I just started a new file so we can access the entire hub with only one golden spatula instead of the required 40. The Bubble Buddy cutscene will trigger when you get near Sandy's tree dome, but since he's still in the first area, there's just an invisible version of him talking to you. He's technically supposed to give you the Bubble Bowl move here, but the game ignores this. I guess since you don't have the required spatulas, so sadly we can't get the move early. We also can't access most of the levels early as they still have a spatula requirement, but we can go into Shady Shoals retirement home and access the Mermalayer level early. Technically we could get a few golden spatulas in here, but since we don't have the Bubble Bowl move, we're pretty restricted. So I did the glitch one more time as I wanted to get to the third area of the hub. This time do the same parkour and then just keep walking past Sand Mountain. You'll end up in the area for Flying Dutchman's graveyard, and heading back to the taxi gate will put you in the third Bubble Buddy cutscene. Again, here he's supposed to give you the cruise bubble move, but since he's invisible, or you don't have 40 spatulas, you never get it. Like the second area, most of the levels are locked away, but we can access SpongeBob's Dream, which is pretty impressive as it's the final level in the game and we only have a single golden spatula. So there's some fun little uses out of this out of bounds glitch, but honestly I had more fun just running around and exploring distant levels in this fashion. In the rock bottom level, there's a section you can reach called the Trench of Advanced Darkness. Here you can find a bus stop right next to a checkpoint box. Bus stops allow you to change characters on the fly, but since this teleport box is so close to it, there's a glitch we can pull off. Stand on the edge, walk into the box, and then press R to swap characters. The screen will fade to black, fade back in to show the bus, and then warp the camera very far below the level. It then quickly changes to a load screen, and we end up back in the original point as the new character. It's also worth noting that you can see a sliver of Hans grab you while all the way down here at the bottom of the level, as well as some footsteps from the character. My best guess is that any character you're not currently playing as is stored way below the level, and then teleports up when you activate a bus stop. But since we're already supposed to teleport, the game gets confused, and this is the result. I was really hoping there was a way that Hans wouldn't show up and we could just run around the level's floor, but I couldn't get anything to happen besides this sequence. Maybe there is a way with some specific timing, but I tried this a bunch of times, so I don't really think so. This one is pretty funny, and I'm very surprised the developers even allowed this glitch to happen. In the downtown Bikini Bottom level, be Sandy and traverse the rooftops until you reach this roof near the circle with a statue below. We're aiming to get on top of this purple building on the corner, so jump over to this ledge and platform up the gray muffler sticking out of the side. It's kind of tricky, but just stand on the pole and then hop up to the larger portion. Stand on top of the part and float back to this upper section of the other building we started on. This portion gives us enough height to reach the muffler on the other side of the purple building, so just jump over and do the same thing to get up this one. After that, just jump onto the roof and boom, Sandy head. For some reason, the developers did not expect you to be able to get up here, so they did not add collision to this roof, meaning we fall partially through it, leaving only Sandy's head showing. I don't know why, but this just looks hilarious to me. It's like a fishbowl with a head inside. This was also the first glitch I discovered during my playthrough, and I knew I had to include it. Funny enough, we can access another roof from here and have a similar thing happen. Just lasso and aim for the green building. Again, there's no roof collision on either of the two buildings here, so we can just clip around them as well. This is probably the most surprising glitch of the game, as it's fairly easy to get to these points with some simple platforming. Sure, the other glitches are kinda easy to do too, but they're pretty specific and you kinda have to know beforehand that they exist. This one is straight up just simple exploring, like you're looking for a lost sock or something. I was honestly expecting one to be up here when I first got it, so I was shocked when I was met with an unfinished building. Sticking with downtown Bikini Bottom, this one also makes the game feel unpolished. Hop up onto this building where you'll find a sign. Interact with it and it will read, "If you chop while in the air, you'll perform a karate kick," with the words karate and kick being merged into one word, which is not correct, and only the word kick is being highlighted. I'm not sure if this has something to do with the Switch's aspect ratio or the font size or what, but it's just weird that there's a misspelling and only part of the word is highlighted. I haven't gone and checked the other versions of the game to see if the whole word was supposed to be highlighted and it's just some weird thing with the Switch, but I don't really know. It's still weird though. And finally, another weird bug that just should not have been in the final game. When using the Bubble Bowl ability, you get this wind-up noise and another when you throw it. But for some reason, if you keep it held down, the sound will eventually just cut out, and you also don't get the throwing noise. I just don't understand how this made it through, and I don't feel like it's intentional. You can only hold it down for a couple seconds anyway before SpongeBob automatically releases it, so why not just extend the sound until it does? I don't know, it's kinda nitpicky, but it also just breaks the game's immersion. Also, when actually bowling the bubble, it can get stuck a lot, especially in the hub world. The rolling physics just seem slapped together, so any slight bump or hill will often cause it to just stop in place. Nice. So, there you have it. Glitches in SpongeBob's Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. Don't get me wrong, I still do love this game as it allows me to explore the world of my favorite cartoon. But dang, I really wish this game just had a little more polish. It could have been a really solid game, but there's just countless things that they could have improved on. Still, I love that this game had glitches to cover like getting out of bounds, and that growing NPC one was hilarious. I'm sure there are a lot of other small glitches that I missed out on that were either patched out or I just didn't run into them. Ones like Sandy's infinite lasso and the taxi wrong warp don't work anymore, but I still wanted to cover the ones that do. If you have the ability to go back to previous versions of the game like on PC, I'd recommend checking out those glitches as they look very fun to do as well. But for now, I'm gonna get up out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, see ya!